the video on turnip bread. So, well, not really, because it sounds disgusting. So I was watching the new version of the film All Quiet on the Western Front. It's very good, and I remember the soldiers in it were talking about eating turnip bread. And then I kind of thought, oh well, yeah, so obviously turnip bread. I did a bit of research on that, and then I remembered that I've seen videos on people making potato bread where they put a little bit of potato into a bread to kind of bulk it out, and I kind of thought, oh right, okay, that's kind of quite interesting. So turnip bread is obviously a variation of that, and then I kind of thought turnips aren't very nice. Well, they are, but they're not brilliant tasting. And obviously the potato was used as of a bulking agent because you couldn't really kind of taste the potato. There's lots of videos on them. The one that I saw that was really good was the Townsend video. His stuff is brilliant. So I was kind of thinking I wanted to have a go at it, but I didn't want to have to use potatoes because there's no flavour to them as such. Well, apart from in the skins and apart from when you turn it into chips. And turnips, I was kind of so I kind of thought instead we'll use a butternut squash. So the idea is that we kind of want to cook the butternut squash, turnip or potatoes, and remove as much liquid from it as possible, so it's not like sloppy, stodgy vegetable. So I'm going to cook it whole with the skin on, and then we're going to, as I'm cooking some potatoes anyway at home, so we might as well cook them that in with the potatoes. It'll take longer than the potatoes to cook, but that doesn't matter. What I'll simply do is when the potatoes are cooked, I will remove the potatoes and carry on cooking the whole butternut in there. And then when the butternut is cooked all the way through, what we'll do is we'll split it open, pull it apart, and let some of the steam then escape from the butternut, and then we should get a drier butternut. But anyway, things will become more apparent as we go a little bit further down the line. So cook it whole in there. Could chop it up, but what will happen is we'll lose flavour and we'll kind of gain moisture to it. So cooking it whole is the way to go. It is tender all the way through. That's fine. I've just damaged it a little bit, pulling it out of the water. So we need to cut it open, and then so it steams, and we get rid of excess moisture. Might dry it out even further. But there you go. So if we cut there, and let it steam, so you can see excess steam coming off and that water kind of wanting to come out of there. So we don't want that in it. We don't want a soggy bread. So we'll just get rid of that as well. It's hot, so you just need to be careful. That out of there, that out of there. And then I think what we might do as well is we might just mush it up and put it on something. So we've got a tray, haven't we? Let's get it on a tray. No, I'm not going to dry it out in the oven. I'm not going to go that far just yet. So we'll get it on a tray, out of the way, and then we'll get rid of. That's going to go on there. Actually, while we're here, how do these taste now they're cooked? Not really of anything. Anyway, we might do something. We've got some seeds somewhere else. Some pumpkin seeds. We might do something with some pumpkin seeds later on. This is when my videos get long, because I go a bit thread through needle with things, but we're here to learn, aren't we? Well, I am. And to learn and get better. Right, so these we will. What do I want? We'll use that spoon again. So just be careful, and then just the more surface area we get from this exposed to the air, the more it will dry out. So if we mush it like that, more steam will come off. So what will really happen if we don't do this the outside will dry off, but the inside will stay kind of quite moist, because the outside will dry and then stop any more moisture from escaping. So if we allow as much surface area as possible, then this will dry out as much as possible, because we're wanting the flavour without the moisture. So all that'll be fine. So we just need to get it out, break it up, and then if we decide to dry it out in the oven a bit more, I'm not going to use the skin, but if we decide to dry it out in the oven, we'll have already broken it up. So I haven't looked at the potato bread recipe, but I think it's basically like a third of the dough is made up of a bulking agent. This bulking agent just happens to taste better than potatoes and taste better than turnips, unless you're a fan of turnips. But I kind of think if you're a fan of turnips, surely you're going to prefer a butternut squash or a pumpkin. Oh yeah, so there we go. That's what I was kind of thinking as well. So when the time comes around for when it's pumpkin season, like Halloween and all that, when there's an excess of leftover pumpkins that you don't kind of know what to do with, you could turn it into pumpkin bread, couldn't we? Or butternut squash bread. Anyway, so that's going to speed up the cooling down process, and we're going to drive off as much moisture as we can, because we've allowed much more surface area. And then it'd be a case of picking through it all, getting rid of the skin and stalks and things, so you can still see there's quite a lot of moisture coming out of it. We might have to dry it out as well. That's that. Right, so leave that to cool, leave that to dry, and then we'll see how it looks afterwards. Let's make some of this bread using some sourdough starter, and then we're going to make some with fast acting yeast as well. So I thought about it a lot, and I think this is what I'm going to do. So there is 100 grams of sourdough starter, so that's 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour in there. There is 250 grams worth of flour in there. There's a pinch of salt at the back. There's 150 grams worth of the pureed butternut squash, and then we've got 150 grams, I'm sure, of water in there. So that should be about the right kind of ratio, but I'm not going to add all the water, so we're going to mix it all together first. So just hide that salt, because we don't want it killing the sourdough starter. And then sourdough starter in there, and then we'll rinse out that glass with most of the water. There's a little bit of water left, just in case the butternut squash is a little bit too wet. Because I was kind of thinking, well, we could dry out the butternut squash and all that kind of stuff, but I was thinking that we could squeeze the excess juice out of it, but if we're going to squeeze water out of it, juice out of it, we're going to lose flavour, and that's not what we really kind of want. We want the flavour of the butternut squash. So we can always add a little bit more. There's a little bit left in there, but that doesn't really matter. It's not an exact science, so we'll see how this comes together. But the butternut squash certainly needs to be pureed, and what we'll do is we'll use the usual method of, we'll mix it together roughly, and then we'll leave it for an hour before we knead it. And then what that will do is that will give the flour time to absorb all the water, and then we'll be able to potentially knead it better. But that looks like looks like it's going to need some more flour in that. So also that butternut squash was a little bit too wet. So how much? Let's just tear off the scale and see how much water we didn't add. So 25 grams in there. So we added 125 grams worth of water, which was too much. So we might need to add some flour to that. But what I'll do is we'll leave it for an hour before we need it, and then the flour will have time to absorb excess amounts of water, so it completely gets saturated. That's one of the tricks of making sourdough, and that you leave it for an hour, and then the flour absorbs more water that way. And then I'm just washing hands. I shouldn't have done that on camera, so just a bit noisy. So by keeping it an hour, the flour has more time to absorb more water, and therefore you can make a more hydrated dough, and that's one of the secrets of sourdough. So we'll leave that for now. We'll see what happens, and if we need to add a little bit more flour before we need it, we'll add a little bit more flour. And if this works, this kind of ratio, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to take the amount of water, take the amount of flour, take the amount of other ingredients, and transfer that over to some fast-acting yeast. But this is sourdough, so it's going to take longer to ferment, and that's just out of curiosity. I'm going to do it two ways, because normally I do things one way, and then I think, oh damn, I should have done it that way as well. So this will be we'll do it both ways. Because not everyone's going to have a sourdough starter, and most people will be able to get hands on some fast-acting yeast. That's my theory, anyway. It's had an hour. Let's have a look. Oh, that's really wet, isn't it? That's really wet. That's going to need... Let's wait, we'll weigh out 50 grams. Right, so that's 50 grams. I think it's going to need more than 50 grams. I think it's going to need 100. We'll just mix it and we'll see what happens. No, it might be okay. 50 might be good. We could have added less water. No, I think 50 grams will be fine. So I'll get this going, and I'll give it a knead for 10 minutes, and if I decide to add any more liquid or any more flour, I'll update the video, but I'll probably take another 50 grams, I think. Yeah, it's a bit wet. We'll see. We'll give it a knead for a few minutes and then we'll see. Nice soft dough though. Yeah, maybe. We'll give it a knead and we'll see what it's like. Another 50 grams. It's wanting to stick to just about everything. So, I suppose, I mean, the flour will absorb more of the liquid over time, so adding flour now is not kind of really a good judge on if it's going to be a good dough by the time we've finished kneading, because it really kind of needs like another hour for the flour to fully absorb the water. That feels bad. Right, we'll give that a knead and then we'll see where we are. Right, so had to put another 50 grams worth of flour in it. So when I make the one with fast-acting yeast, I think what we'll do is we'll put less water in, because that's obviously going to affect the flavour of the butternut. But it'll still be a kind of a nice kind of comparison. But I think a third of the weight of butternut to 2/3 the weight of the flour is probably about right. It's a nice colour, and you can't tell there's any butternut in there. There's no kind of evidence of it. It's quite a smooth dough. It's not bad. It's got a little bit of elasticity, bit elastic. So we'll see. Will it prove? It's sourdough. It'll take 10-12 hours to double in size, something like that, which is fine because it's night time now, and then that just means that I can have a look at it in the morning, and we'll just leave it to rise and ferment overnight. Oh, We've risen. You can tell we have. It's almost touching the top of the bowl. That's impressive, isn't it? That's way more double than in size. So let's knock it back, stick it in the fridge, and then it can slowly ferment in the fridge for a few hours, I think, and then we'll shape it, and then we'll let it rise again, and then we'll bake it. It's quite a slow process, but it's sourdough, and that's what kind of happens. But I will do a fast-acting yeast now, and I was thinking what we'll do is, well, that's kind of worked out that it's 1 part butternut squash to 3 parts flour. So the fast-acting yeast one, I'll work it out so it's definitely 1 part butternut to 2 parts flour, and then we can do that as a bit of a comparison. And we'll still be able to tell if they both work as in sourdough and a fast-acting yeast, but we'll get an idea of using more butternut in one than the other. So it won't be a complete failure and me messing up slightly. Right, fast-acting yeast. Well, dried yeast, but it is fast-acting. 400 grams of flour, 200 grams worth of butternut squash puree, a little bit of salt at the back. Now I'm using more flour and butternut squash because about 600, my loaves are normally about 600 grams, so I kind of think that's about, this will make a good sized loaf. So, but it's the ratios we're interested in. So 50 grams worth of water and a packet of yeast, and then mix that into there, and then we'll just add the water in 50 grams at a time, so we'll see how we go. So 50 grams worth of water, not all the yeast is gone in, but it doesn't matter. If we need to add more water, we'll swirl that glass out with a little bit more water. So I think it'll definitely need another, it's definitely going to need another 50 grams. So I'll swirl that out. You can always add more, but it's not going to be an exact recipe because obviously the vegetable puree that you're adding, vegetable puree of choice, is going to have a different moisture content to it. So it's going to be a rough kind of estimate on the amount of liquid that you add compared to the amount of flour and vegetable puree. Right, so I think we need another 50 grams, so I've got some ready. That's another 50 grams. Swirl that out a little bit. I think that'll be about right. Then we'll leave it to combine for an hour. Let's get that word for knock it over. Don't need to knock anything else over today. And this should be okay. So we'll leave it for an hour before we, I think this is going to be okay. We'll leave it an hour before we need it. We can always add a little bit more flour. Yeah, so if we leave it an hour, the flour will have a good amount of time to soak up, to soak up all the liquid. There's a proper French name for it. I can't remember. Levain? No, it's not leaven. Yeah, something like that. I forget. I'm not even good at my own language, let alone another one. Dyslexia, apparently. Right. So, it seems kind of a little bit sticky, but we'll see how it goes. We'll cover it, we'll leave it for an hour, and then we'll give it a knead, and then we'll see about it rising and things like that. But that looks about the roughly amount of water. Might have put 25 grams in a little bit too much, but very difficult to judge. It might need a little bit more flour, but we'll see. It's had an hour. Let's have a look at it. I think that's going to be a little bit too soft, so we should have added 25 grams less of water. Let's get in. Jen didn't want to do this, but we'll just have to add a bit more flour. We'll add 50. We'll have a look at 50 grams. It'll throw off the ratio slightly, but 50 grams looks about right. 50 grams. I'm not going to add any more than that. Yeah, that'll be fine. We'll have. So get it going. Slightly out of balance with the ratio of flour to vegetable puree, but it'll be okay. So, right, so need that for 10 minutes. Allow it to rise. Well, double in size. Knock it back, shape it, and then bake it, and we'll see. Right, it's had a couple of hours. So it's certainly doubled in size. It's got some nice structure to it. Let's give it a shape. Let's put it in the proving basket. I think it will be ready to cook in about an hour. Unfortunately, I'm going out, so I'm going to put it in the fridge to slow down the proving process. It's a bit sticky. Let's see if we can shape it. Nice texture. It's nice and soft. Let's group that together. So if we put it in the fridge, it will slow down the proving process. And then hopefully it'll be ready to cook when I get home from swimming. I don't let... Years ago, I used to think that I never want to bake bread because the bread dictated to you when it was ready. And I don't like that. I don't like a bit of bread telling me when it's ready to bake. I like to be much more in control of the bread and decide when I'm going to bake it. So it's not smooth on the outside, but that's quite understandable because it's got quite a lot of vegetable matter in it. But it's kind of shaping. It's getting some splits on the top of it. It's getting a bit rough there, but not to worry. Right, so downside in the proving basket, it's a little bit tacky. But we'll see how it comes out. So a little bit of flour on top, and then a shower cap on top of that, because we can use it lots of different times without wasting plastic. So stick it on the fridge, and then we'll bake that when I come home from swimming. So, out of interest, this is the sourdough. Been in the fridge since this morning. So, let's give it a shape. So, with the shaping, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take that dough from the top and stretch it so it tucks underneath. So, it's that type of motion. So, it's slowly pulling it round. So, actually, like that. And it's tucking under. So, it's creating tension. And then that's the tension that makes you want it to spring open when you bake it and you put a slice in it. So it's all about creating tension. And it's the same when you're making loaves of bread. Well, sandwich loaves, and it's the same when you're making baguettes as well, or sticks. That you need to create that tension in the dough. And then when you slice it, that tension is the thing that makes it explode and you get the nice crack, nice split. And the bread wants to explode out of it. So it's creating tension. So you slowly pushing. I don't know how to describe it any better. It's just a case of doing that and slowly making it tight. So I think what I'll do is, so we can bake them both at the same time, we will put this in the fridge until I'm ready to go swimming, and then we'll pull this one out of the fridge, and then it might just have warmed up enough by the time I come home from swimming, and then we'll be able to bake both loaves of bread. That's alright, is that? That's slightly smoother, but of course it's going to be slightly smoother because there's more flour in it and less vegetable matter. So brewing basket, there. Tuck those bits in there, that there. See, it's wanting to split open. See how much tension we brought into it. So we know the green one is sourdough. So that on there, put it in the fridge until I go swimming, and then we'll leave it to prove out for an hour or two while I'm swimming, and probably while the other bed's breaking as well. Baking. There we go. Right, that's in serious danger of overproving and collapsing. But that's what you get for going out swimming. So we'll have to be quick. It might collapse when it's cooking. We'll see how we go though. So, yeah, it's probably going to collapse, not to worry. No. So slice, and lids in the oven. Spray, it's going to collapse, is that? So spray it on the side that hasn't got the crack, but split, and then hopefully it will split over. But I think that's going to collapse as it cooks. Not to worry. I'm more interested in the taste, and I'm more interested that it actually works. So I was thinking while swimming, for the sake of interest, I'll dry some of that butternut squash puree out. So, simple case, just to kind of see how much liquid is in it. So I'm drying some other things out anyway. So let's just measure 150 grams worth. Right, so I'll turn that into soup for dinner or lunch. That's 150 grams. What we'll do is we'll just put it on this bit of baking parchment, and we'll flatten it out. And then we'll dry that, because I'm drying some another vegetable out at the moment, so that's pretty flat. I could probably do better than that. I can do better than that. I can do better. We can get it thinner. I've got another bit of baking parchment that we can put on top. No, maybe that'll do. Now the only problem is that won't be even, and it won't dry even. It'll do. Right, so we'll leave that out overnight, and then when I'm at work tomorrow, we'll dry that out in the hot cupboard, and then we'll know, once it's completely dry and all the moisture's evaporated out of it, we'll know how much moisture was in there. just really for my own interest, but as well, if I was to ever use some kind of dried vegetable puree, dried vegetables, like vegetable powder in a bread, I'd know how much to add. It's just a simple calculation. So we'll do that, we'll dry that out, we'll turn it into a powder, and then we'll weigh it again. Right, it smells about ready. It's had 25 minutes, let's have a look. And we'll put the other bread in the centre. Oh, that's not so bad, is it? That's not so bad. That's not so bad. It hasn't failed. Hasn't failed. So, right. This is the sourdough. Slice on the top. Oh, that's a nice one, isn't it? Slice on the top, and then lid. Spray it that side. Form a crust. And the oven. 25 minutes. And we'll see how the sourdough one turns out. But that doesn't look bad, does it? That doesn't look bad. That doesn't look bad. We'll put it at the back so it's got a bit of air going around it. You don't want things drying on a flat board. You want some space underneath. I haven't got a wire rack. But anyway, so see what happens in 25 minutes. So it'll almost be ready for the other one. But I have noticed this has softened up quite a bit. So it's lost that hollow sound. That might just be down to the overproving, but it's just softer is that than a normal loaf would be. So I reckon the other one's going to be ready. We're about 2 minutes away, so it will be ready. So let's pull it out and have a look. Turn it on off, and then it's getting a bit late. I don't think I'll be eating bread tonight. Lid off. Oh, okay. That's alright, isn't it? But there is less butternut puree in there, so not to worry. Right, that out of the way. Squeaky oven door. So there's less butternut in that one, so we'll kind of see what happens. But not bad. You know, obviously that's, so as you can see on there, the gluten isn't just quite as stretchy on that, and it's wanted to split. There you go, that was ready. So it's just wanted to kind of split, whereas this has got more of a texture of a proper loaf. You can see the, you can really see, but you can see the stretch. I can see the stretches in that the gluten is certainly more formed. That's down to the fact that there's more actual bread flour in that than that one. So we'll just leave those off the board so the air can get around them, and then we'll slice into them, have a taste. But it might be tomorrow morning because I've got a fancy cocktail. Maybe, we'll see. Put in some. So that's really soft, is that one. Look at that. That's a good colour, isn't it? Look at that for a colour. And then let's just hack off an end of this one. So better crust, but that's because it's got more flour in it. Slightly darker. How's it taste? Looks chewy. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice, is that? And it goes to show So, to start the video, it was two things that made me do this. It was YouTube channel that I watch, Townsend. It's very good. That was talking about potato bread. I was kind of like, potato bread, that's a bit boring. There's no flavour in potatoes, mostly in the skins. And then watching All Quiet on the Western Front, where they had turnip bread. More flavour in turnip, but it's just not as nice. So it works with butternut squash. If it works with butternut squash, it'll work with any root vegetables of your choice. So, carrots, butternut, squashes, pumpkins, parsnips, turnips, potatoes, celeriac, like the list goes on. So any kind of vegetable puree like that you can have, go to the supermarket and, like, we're talking root vegetables, will make a bread, and you can get the flavour from it. And it's, I mean, originally to bulk it out, but if you pick a root vegetable that's got loads of flavour, it's going to make your bread interesting, to say the least. How's this one taste? I mean, it's sourdough, so it's nicer, but it works. It's really nice. That's lovely. That's lovely. I don't know why that isn't a thing. I suppose because you can do beetroot. It's quite wet as beetroot. Maybe if you roasted it. Maybe someone will have done it. Nothing's new under the sun, is it? It's just not a popular. It's just not a popular thing. It's just not everywhere. So it works. I will put the final recipes in the description, so you don't need to kind of faff around too much. Obviously, there'll have to be a little bit of give and take, so it won't be an exact recipe, because the vegetables that you use will have a slightly different water content, so you might need to add a little less water or a little bit more flour to kind of compensate. But delicious, it works. I'm not going to do it on a regular basis, but it's just interesting. It's just interesting, you know. It's a nice colour. It's a bit heavier. But it's nice. It works as a success. And then, there we go. I haven't decided if that bit at the drying out the butternut squash puree will be at the end. It probably will be. I'll put it at the end, so it'll be like after the bit that I say very nice, success. So this is dried out in the hot cupboard, but it's stuck to the paper, so I'll have to have a go at getting it off the paper and hopefully not getting any paper coming off with it. But it's dried out quite well, so we've certainly made a butternut squash powder out of interest. So I'll be able to weigh that and see how it tastes. Quite nice with that. So I'll get it off there, and then we'll weigh it, and we'll see how much water is in 150 grams worth of butternut squash puree. Right, there we go. We have the flakes, and there we go. That's a better view. And there is 18 grams. Well, between 18 and 20 grams, so about 19 grams. So you can see how much liquid have we lost. Now, obviously, my brain's always thinking, and now I'm thinking, what we should do is we should have another go at baking the bread, but smash that up into a powder, and then add that to a normal bread mixture, deduct out the 20 grams of flour and add that instead, and we should get the same results as for the butternut bread. So just out of interest, but that's going to be another video.